We haven't achieved much, so said the UN's international mediator after holding talks with members of the Syrian government and opposition. The two sides entered and left the room by separate doors and sat in silence while he talked. But at least Syria's civil war foes were face to face in the same room for the first time. While the talks struggle on, at least 15 people died in the city of Aleppo alone today, as Darshna Soni reports.
Flew overhead, dropping their deadly barrels. Amateur footage claiming to show that these indiscriminate bombs are now targeting the suburbs of Damascus after weeks of being used against Aleppo. At least 15 people have been reported dead. And yet, the bombing wasn't even discussed at today's so-called peace conference, being held hundreds of miles away.
We haven't achieved much, but we are continuing. The two delegations are here.
An honest admission from the UN mediator, who had said that these talks represent nothing less than saving Syria. The government and the opposition did meet for the first time today. Or rather, they entered a room through separate doors, sat across a table, but did not talk to one another. Instead, they sat and listened to Mr. Brahimi speaking. And yet these talks may represent Syria's only hope, a significant step for the two sides, who cannot even agree on the aims of the conference. The Damascus delegation denied afterwards that it had accepted the premise of a transitional leadership, the opposition saying it would accept nothing less.
Syrian people, they want transition from dictatorship to democracy. Transition process has just started today.
Everyone says that if you only undertake regime change, as some are trying to do, then Syria will face chaos. There is already enough chaos there. This could just be an avalanche of events that no one wants. Everybody understands that order needs support.
Both sides have been forced together under pressure from their backers, the Russians and America and Britain. The focus is on small, practical concessions which are desperately needed on the ground. They discussed localised ceasefires, in particular in the old city of Homs, where today the fighting continued. Also the possibility of prisoner releases, and crucially for millions who are suffering, opening up humanitarian corridors to allow aid through, which cannot come soon enough. In the aftermath of an airstrike in rebel-controlled Aleppo, perhaps a symbol of hope. As volunteers searched for survivors, they shouted that they had found someone buried under the rubble. And then a baby girl is pulled from the ground. She looks lifeless, but suddenly wipes the dust from her eyes. She is alive. What future for her will now depend on the outcome of Geneva II, where tomorrow the talks will continue.